Hey everybody, it's Pastor John here for this week's Wisdom Wednesday. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope today that this blesses you. I'm going to talk about something kind of tricky. I heard a quote once. It said, if you want to change someone, you either hurt them deeply or love them profoundly. When our culture today, typically in a disagreement or typically when there are two sides to an issue, one side does not choose to love profoundly, it chooses to hurt deeply. And then, in fairness, the other side, in response to the choice to hurt deeply, decides they too will also hurt deeply. And so love is never established. There is no boundaries in discussion and debate. It's just venom, it's just hurt, it's just toxic. And that's typically how things go. And I think that's a sad case in our culture that we can't disagree with someone and still love them. That seems to have gone by the wayside. I'll give you an example. In our culture today, it is celebrated, or it has been deemed, that June is Pride Month. The LGBTQ plus community has either chosen or has been given June as a month to highlight their perspective and their way of thinking and their lifestyle. Now, as a Christian, I see things differently. And I think the real question is, as a Christian, can I still love profoundly even someone that disagrees with me? And then on the other side of that, someone who disagrees with me, can they still love profoundly? See, it ultimately really all comes down to a standard. There is a moral standard that each person holds. Now, the problem with some of these personal moral standards is that if someone believes their moral standard is not absolute, it's relative, and it's only for them, then another person can view things the same way, and that their philosophy of life is that they have their own personal moral standard, but yet those two personal moral standards can not coexist. They can have problems. For example, just an extreme situation, someone can say, well, my personal moral standard says anyone that is bald should be tarred and feathered. And I could say, well, my personal moral standard is that if you're bald, you're happy. And then we're going to have an issue because their personal moral standard infringes upon my personal moral standard. And so for me, on my journey, I've come to find out I believe that there is God's moral standard. And his moral standard is captured in the Holy Scriptures, in the Bible. And it's important to know what God thinks and his heart and who he is and what he speaks on different subjects, because ultimately he is the moral standard. Someone's going to have their own. They'll say this is wrong to do. Whatever extreme case you could come up and say, okay, I think going up to random kids and punching them in the face is wrong. Someone's going to have a standard. The question is, what standard is that? Now, as a follower of Christ, I believe in God's word. I believe that that's the ultimate standard. Now, some other people will disagree, but can we love? That's the ultimate question. Can I still profoundly love other people? And I believe that I can, even those that disagree with me. I'm reminded in Ephesians chapter 4, where it says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. That's a part of it. Get rid of evil behavior, bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, slander. Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. So we can see things differently, but yet I can still be tenderhearted towards another person. The question is, can you be as well? And I hope that you can. Now, I believe that real feelings can occur outside of God's standard, but acting upon those feelings are wrong and against God's standard. I could have feelings for another woman than my wife, and they could be genuine and real, but acting upon those feelings would be wrong, not just because of a personal moral standard, but because God has decreed in his moral standard that would be wrong. And so I hope that wherever you are that you still choose to love profoundly. And that doesn't always mean that you accept the other perspective, but it means that you still love the other person and you care for the other person. And I hope that I do that. And I hope today in our Wisdom Wednesday, you embrace that challenge and do the same. God bless you. Hope you're doing well. Hope to see you next week.